Hello and welcome to Delphia Consulting's Exploring Sage HRMS Payroll. I'm your presenter and host today, Kelly Jo Drilovich. I'm a Strategic Account Manager here at Delphia Consulting. I'm formerly a payroll manager and user of Sage Abra Suite. We had several different companies in the Suite environment. We did payroll in 17 states. So I'm sharing that with you today to let you know that I've used the Suite system. I understand it very well, and our goal today is to present to you the Sage HRMS Payroll. We're going to highlight some of the differences, but we're really going to focus on what a strong payroll system this is. Now, before we get started, I have a couple of housekeeping items. All lines are currently on mute. You have in your GoToWebinar toolbar, there is a section for questions. And if you have a question and would like to type that into the question bar, I'll try to address those as we're going through the demonstration today. But worst case scenario, at the end of our presentation today, we'll answer those as well, and we'll open up the phone lines if you have any other questions. Okay. We're going to talk about what is the Sage HRMS Payroll, and then go ahead and give you a general overview of that, and then open it up to question and answers. So just a little bit about Delphia if you're not familiar with us. The Sage HRMS practice is our primary focus of our business. We are master developers for the line. In fact, several enhancements should your organization need some additional firepower or with the Sage HRMS Payroll or any other aspects of the system, we have a full development team as well. We do have the largest staff of certified consultants for the Sage HRMS line. Many are former users of the system like myself. We also have SHRM certified and CPA certified payroll professionals, etc. We are headquartered in Columbus, Ohio, but we have staff all throughout the U.S. We are also Microsoft Gold application partners as well. So as you're probably aware, the Sage HRMS is a very robust system, but like the Sage Abra Suite, you need to only purchase the modules that are important to you when you need them. So it's still a modular system. It starts with the HR database, and then we've got of course, we're going to focus today on payroll, but there's all different components to the system should your organization be interested in expanding their footprint. So what is the Sage HRMS? It is a SQL database version of Sage Abra Suite. It's really the flagship for the HRMS in Sage North America product line, and it was intended to replace the Sage Abra Suite. As you've probably heard through Sage and Delphia Communications, Sage has not announced an end of life for Sage Abra Suite. At some point, they will do so. That has not currently happened. So we're encouraging clients to take a look at this version, perhaps do their budgeting and consideration of what they will do, what you will do as an employer when Sage does announce that end of life for the product. Hopefully you won't be stuck one of the last converters. There's a lot of good reasons to migrate to this version. For HR, it's really a straight migration path. All of the HR data will migrate over, all of your job history, benefits history, etc. Payroll is a new module. It is based on the Sage 300 ERP systems payroll, formerly known as ACPAC. Instead of writing it from the ground up, they utilized a payroll engine that existed in one of their products. And since they announced that and deployed that over the many years, I believe 8 years, they've really enhanced that payroll engine so that it surpasses the functionality that is found in Sage Abra Suite. And that happened a few releases ago. So there's some pretty exciting things that this version can do that we're not able to do in the Sage Abra Suite. Moving forward, other than those really critical compliance updates, EEO report updates, OSHA report updates, things like that, all new development and enhancements for the product is being done on the HRMS line, and we'll talk about that in just a moment. Some of the benefits of migrating is really to keep current on technology. The Abra Suite version is built on the Visual FoxPro database that is no longer supported by Microsoft. The SQL database is the Microsoft's primary and flagship database. Very, very powerful database. Really reduces the way any errors can occur in the system. This has to do with how the system updates the tables. It has built-in file corruption. IT loves it as you can automate the backups with SQL Server. It's a very secure database and very scalable, so we can use it for very large clients as well. You're not going to have those database size limits like we have with Sage Abra Suite. From the HR side, there's some enhancements that have been made, and I'll just touch on these briefly. In the time off area, I really love this. So we can, first of all, use different dates for calculating seniority. So if you have a situation where a new hire has negotiated a more generous time off plan, maybe something that your employees normally wouldn't be eligible for until they'd had 5 years of service, we can use a time off service date and allow you to jump them ahead to that 5-year seniority without having to write a separate attendance plan for that. The other enhancement to time off is each tier. So if we have seniority levels in our system, 0 to 5 years, the employees accrue up to a certain amount, 5 to 10 years, the next amount, 15 and over, etc. We can have a different maximum available and a different carryover based on those seniority tiers. So as it currently sits in Suite, you have one entire plan. So maybe the maximum you can carry over is 40 hours and the maximum you can have accrued on the books is 160 hours. We can make those specific to the seniority tier. So you're allowing people with more seniority to carry more over or to have a higher maximum available amount. We also have the ability to do step rates. So I see this a lot in union environments. If you've been in the job title for 6 months and you automatically get a step rate increase for 15 cents an hour, 25 cents an hour, this system will support that. We still are able to do the salary bands or grade ranges as well, but we also have the step rate capabilities in this version as well. In the I-9 area and compliance, you do have the ability to list out the different documents you used to verify the employee's I-9. New hire reporting is done through Atrix, which we'll talk about in just a minute. It is a tax reporting service, and the system has the ability to create a new hire reporting file and upload that to the reporting to your state that you're reporting in. So very nice that that is automated. And then with the 2017 release, we also had an increase in the length of the job code title field. So I believe it was formerly at something like 25, 30 characters. It's gone up to like 60, I believe. So for those, a very long senior vice president in charge of widgets and whatever, we can now get that on a title field there. So that's pretty nice. Other enhancements or differences with the Sage HRMS Payroll, if we're processing payroll and there is some sort of interruption on the workstation, maybe you had a power surge, something else was happening, in Suite, we would call that a stuck check, where it, for some reason it's hung up in the system and it's causing things to be out of balance from one report to another. In the HRMS, the process will stop and you'll go to a restart maintenance functionality. You just click that so you know right away when that's happened. Then you just restart your process. So no waiting to find that out until you've already printed checks and you're doing reconciliations and you found out that something is stuck in your system and need to engage with a partner to get that cleaned out of the database. We don't have that issue. Also, once you run payroll, there is built-in exception reporting. So we'll take a look at that. So it has to do with perhaps we select a different pay period where we don't want to take a particular deduction, or we want to pay a particular earning like a commission payment, things like that. The system will just let you know, hey, you didn't pick a frequency that this is happening on, just to make you aware of that, or somebody's reached a maximum in their accruals and then we're going to stop their time off plan accruals, things like that. So that exception reporting is very nice. You also have the ability to immediately go into your quarterly reporting. No additional steps, no trial quarter close or trial final payroll or final quarter close. You are able, we'll show you kind of what the equivalents are in the HRMS for the payroll processing, but when it comes to quarter end, you don't have any of that going on. No trial quarter close, no final quarter close. You can go right into that. Also in this version, editing the employee or employer information is very easy. So say you started out your first payroll for the year and you realized you didn't update your SUTA rates. So we could do edits in there to update that and make that calculation out there. Or if we have a situation where an employee is out on leave and they bring in their payment for their portion of insurance payments to stay on the plans, we can document that in the system that they've provided that payment in there. We also have the ability to what we call backdating checks. In Suite right now, if you ran a check and it was dated for Friday the 27th, the soonest you could cut another check would be on Friday the 27th or Saturday the 28th. We don't have those limitations with this version. So if you already ran payroll for this week, and those checks are dated for the 27th, but something comes up and they want you to run a bonus for $1,000 for a particular employee so they can hand it to them, you can do that and not have to worry about those date issues. As I mentioned a little bit earlier, we utilize Atrix for tax reporting in this version, which is very neat. With their quarterly bundle, you're able to submit all of your reports, whether you're in one state, 5 states, 17 states, 20 states, whatever, through a single portal. So you don't have to remember your login credentials for each particular tax entity. You can do that directly through Atrix. It also supports some 9,000 local taxes and very easily can, let's say we had to void a payment and I need to submit a corrected form. Maybe I needed to correct my SUTA report for the quarter. The system will allow you to do that. You don't have to type out and do outside of the system any corrected reports of that nature, such as a corrected W-2 as well. The monthly, quarterly, and year-to-date history is available online right now in Suite. If you do your trial quarter close, that moves everything over to the year-to-date totals. In this, you can quickly see that information on the employee's record. In fact, I can go back and look where the employee was last year at this time with their month, quarter, or year-to-date amounts as well. So very nice to have immediate access to that without having to run a report. Our ACH files can be recreated at any time. We could even combine them for multiple payrolls. So maybe I did my check for Friday and then all of a sudden I needed to cut a special payment and we'd like to do that ACH. We can combine those as well and recreate them too. In this version as well, time cards aren't required. You can have an employee set up with some default hours and default pay rates. So some groups, maybe they're getting their time for their hourly employees from an automated timekeeping system, but perhaps their salaried individuals are not in that system. And so we can have our default time card information in there and utilize those. We also have the ability to override what is set up on the employee's record for a single payroll. So let's go back to that scenario where perhaps we have an employee out on leave, and instead of bringing in the payment for their portion of the insurance while they're out on leave, perhaps they've discussed with your HR team that you're going to allow them to double up on those deductions for the month, the 2 payrolls that they come back. So we can override for just those 2 pay periods that deduction and maybe double up that deduction, or maybe we decide we're not going to tax something or do an extra withholding on a specific payroll run without having to go back and change the employee's record and then remember to go back and change it again after we pass that threshold. We can just do it for that particular payroll run. When those are done, everything floats back to what the employee's standards were in their record. We also have an increase in pay frequencies in this version. So in addition to the weekly, bi-weekly, semi-monthly payrolls, we also have the ability to do 22 times a year, 13, you see that a lot in education, 10 times a year or quarterly. We can also use those like we would use our pay periods. So in Sage Abra Suite, you have the ability to select a particular payroll. So let's say we're doing a bonus run. We may use a supplemental pay period, and perhaps we have the system set up to not take our health insurance deductions when it's a supplemental run. It's that same type of theory, only we have more of these to choose from so that you've got some additional options out there as well. And there's no longer any timing restrictions when you can move an employee from one pay group to another. So in Suite, if I have a salaried group and an hourly group, perhaps I need to transfer, someone's got a promotion, they're now going to be salaried. There's a very short window when I can transfer them in Suite. We don't have those restrictions in this version. And then these are some of my favorite enhancements with this version that it has that Suite doesn't have. So the system can have overtime rate tables. So some groups do not have an automated timekeeping system. Maybe they're getting raw time from a point of sale system or something like that. And we can have the system do the calculations for overtime. Maybe you have a daily amount, or maybe it's over so many hours in a week, things like that. Looks like I have a spelling error here. And my next one, apologize, sales commission tables. You can set up the ranges for calculating those as a percent of sales, things like that. So you can have a table out there and then show what those sales figures are and have the commission tables be driven off of that. And we can also do piece rate tables as well. You can set up ranges and brackets for those. And really part of figuring out if this is applicable to you or not is really engaging with the Delphia team when we do our needs assessment. Okay. So without further ado, we are going to go over to the product itself. So just a reminder, if you have questions, we do have the question window in your GoToMeeting toolbar. You can type in a question there. I will try to answer those as we go along. Worst case scenario, we will have open up for questions at the end of the presentation today. Okay. So now you should be seeing the Welcome to Sage HRMS home screen. Each user has the ability to create some additional links here if you would like to have links out to your website or Delphia so you can quickly see what classes we have going or download some support, some product manuals, things of that nature, or go out to the IRS. You can set up those links real quickly. We also have some hot links here to some Sage resources. Immediately you can see what's new in this latest version. And we also have our quick search toolbar. You can always go to the advanced find, and we'll look at that in a minute. And then our product messaging. So when there's tax tables, or in this case, looks like there's a service release that was released on last Wednesday for this version. You can just a notification that in product messaging. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and go to the advanced find. So you may be familiar with this with Suite, but you'll notice here in my navigation, this version is slightly different. So we're going to talk a little bit about that as well. And I would also call out to you that I have both U.S. and Canadian employees set up in my demonstration environment. So I also have a Canadian payroll. We're going to focus on the U.S. payroll today based on our who is joining us from various clients. We don't have any Canadian clients on the call to my knowledge. Okay. So we're going to focus on the U.S. today. So I can come out here and find my employee with the more options. You can start willowing down to which groups of employees you want to look at. This may be hiding behind your go-to webinar toolbar, but over here on the far right-hand side, there's a hyperlink to personalize, and you can decide what items are included in your view for the advanced find just by doing a quick update there, okay? And you'll notice that these columns, we can also sort by those as well just by clicking on the top there. I'm going to go ahead and select my employee Hugh, and we'll just look at his record for just a minute. And I just want to highlight a few things here. You'll see in this version that if we have digital photographs of our employees, you're going to see those on all of the headers as we go through this system. So all of your HR areas here, you'll see that information. I happen to also have masked out Social Security numbers in case somebody's walking by my desk. I don't want them to be able to see that type of information. Okay, so here's Hugh's basic information here. I'm going to go over to Hugh's job and pay area. We've got our tabs. There's still the same information that is contained here. They've just grouped them differently. So now we have the personnel tab, and as you can see, the various screens that are handled there. So no more of the icons over there and having to hover over them and squint and remember what each one is. It's just spelled out for you. So I'm going to go over to the job and pay, and I'm going to go over to Hugh's current job. I just want to take a peek here at his organization tab, and I want to talk a little bit about general ledger components. In this demonstration environment, I have my division and my department are part of my general ledger string. So depending on where the employee is assigned, or if I'm getting information in from timekeeping that the employees may be working somewhere else than their home department, these are driven in my demonstration environment. My general ledger segments are these, okay? So a difference between Suite and the HRMS Payroll is instead of all being in the single database like we're at with Suite, we have a separate payroll database for each EIN, each tax identification number. So if you have multiple companies or entities, multiple tax ID numbers, you could have several payroll databases. This is just the way the structure of the HRMS payroll database is done. So we go through an open payroll process. Any changes that have occurred to the employee's record, maybe they've added dependents to insurance or things of that nature. These changes will be reflected when we go through and open our payroll process. They'll be updated for the employee's record, okay? So I just wanted to point out here, these two components are what is driving in my demonstration environment, the employee's information on payroll. So I'm going to transition now over to the payroll screen. We'll see that instead of having the icons or the different tabs along here, we've got three: the employee payroll, their activity, and selection list. So this, in the employee payroll setup screens, this is the payroll information for this individual employee. his demographic information, which would get updated when we go through our open payroll process. The class and schedule tab, this is where we can assign workers' compensation groups or classifications. I also want to do a little identifier here with our class codes. Class codes can be used several ways in this system. We could use them to run a payroll for a specific group of individuals. We may use them for sorting in reports or sort order when we're printing out checks or things like that. So really up to you guys and the consultant how those might be used in your organization. This information here, we also have a little box here if the employee is going to consent to get their W-2 electronically. And we'll talk about that when we look into Atrix a little bit more. But if we've got the sign off from the employee for that, we would mark that box, and that will do some great things for us here at year-end reporting. To go over to the cost center, and again, just going to point out that the division and department, these are the general ledger segments, so this is showing me where it's at. So I'm seeing this directly on the employee screen, what their general ledger coding is, instead of having to go to the setup area and look at the general ledger settings on those organizational levels. I have them right in my view for the individual employee. On the pay screen, we actually keep all earnings and deductions for the employees in a single area. So we're going to see all of them, hours-based and flat for earnings. And we're also going to, I'll point out that we have our best practices configuration in our numbering of our earnings and deductions. This has to do with this setup has to do with how we've really found in our years working with this product how to get the most out of reporting in the system. Okay, so we'll see here the regular type pays and the 1000s. We'll even see that each individual employee is going to have an overtime rate that's visible on their record as well. If I had a double time rate, I would show that as well. And as I scroll down, I'm just going to get into the insurance deduction area. I just want to point out a couple of things here. So we see here the employee's contribution amount that is still fed to us from our benefit plans that are set up in HR. What we've also done in this configuration is we're using the employer portion. We have a separate line item. The system will still do the math. It knows how much the premium is for the employee for the month, how much they're going to contribute. So the total premium less the employee's contribution equals the net employer amount. So we see that as a separate line item. What this allows us to do is having this as a separate line item is to be able to expense out completely employer paid benefits during payroll processing. So maybe everyone gets our accidental death and dismemberment insurance. The company pays 100% of that, but I would like to be able to do the expensing of that during the payroll process. Okay, so I'm able to do that. We'll see some additional benefits here in the 5,000s, and then we get into our 401k or our savings plans. In this case, we also have a flexible spending account, and we've, in this system, we have our enhancement where we can take those deductions and turn those into an ACH file. So if you're doing a flexible spending account and you would like to be able to transmit those via ACH, we can do that with this enhancement. I also have the garnishments showing up in the 7,000 range. In this demonstration environment, I have the garnishment manager tool set up in this system so that it will do the actual prioritization and calculation based on the specific payroll. Now, without the garnishment manager tool, it works like Suite does. So if you have someone with multiple garnishments and you just have it in your little checklist that you're going to double check those after you run a trial payroll, you can do that in this version as well. Go back, override those if we need our tapping into, or we've got more, we've taken more than, leaving them less than their disposable minimum pay amount. Okay. Now, I would tell you that my demonstration environment, I have all of my employees set up with these default hours. So when we were going through the PowerPoint, I said that you don't have to bring time in or have separate time cards for employees. And what I meant by that is if we do nothing else with these employees, it is because we have this default hours in there, it is going to pay Hugh on his payroll processing and 80 hours of regular pay. Okay, so that's just how this system is configured. Okay. Taxes, pretty straightforward here. We'll see the various taxes, and if I do an F9, that will bring open that particular code. I could have done that on the earnings or the pays and deduction screen as well. That F9 brings it open, and I'll see the filing status and all of the information for the employee that has been set up. So he's single, 0 exemptions, no extra withholding. In this system, we have one code for Medicare and Social Security. It has both the employee portion and the employer. So no more EMP1, EMP2. We just have the Medicare and the Social Security, and you'll be able to see both the employee and employer portions of that. Depending on your configuration, excuse me, I got one screen ahead of myself. The other tab, you can use alternate addresses for employees. Maybe they're a snowbird certain times of the year. They're somewhere else. We can document that there. Keep any notes related to payroll. Depending on your configuration and your group's requirements, we may utilize what are called optional fields. We may use these to drive additional calculations in the system, and that would really be something that would be really dive in deep when we're doing the actual planning of your migration. In this version, the EFT is our direct deposit. We are either 100% direct deposit or 100% live check in this version. We do have the ability to do percentage-based. So maybe I would like 25% to go to my savings account and then 75% to go to my checking account. So we can do percentage-based, or you could say, hey, I want a flat 250 to go to savings, and the balance of my should be in my checking account. So we can do that with this version. No limits to the number of accounts, although I would caution you, sometimes banks charge you if there's more than 3 accounts on an individual record. So be sure to check with your bank. If you are wanting to send your child support payments via electronic funds transfer, this is actually what this garnishment tab does. We would associate it with your child support deduction. Then you have the ability to enter all of the information, case identifier, the state, etc. All of that information in this area, and we can transmit those child support payments electronically. And then the last tab is just the work location. Depending on your requirements, we could have that set up or not, really up to you guys. The transition over to the employee activity area. And I would do a little shout out. I'm actually back in June in this demonstration environment. So what I've done is now I'm quickly seeing where this employee is month to date, quarter, year to date for this year. And I can do a quick gross to net. I don't have a lot of stuff as far as other deductions or overtime or things like that in this demonstration environment. But you can see it sums up my deductions and taxes, tells me my net pay, any non-cash income, etc. So I've got that. I can even go back and say, hey, where was this employee at this point, same point, in 2015? Okay, so as long as I have that historical check information in the system, I'm able to look at that data. I can also come in here and look at the actual checks. It's going to default to the current year, so January 1 to today's date. And as I mentioned, I am actually still back in June, and I'm just going to open up a check here. I'll make this a little bit bigger for us. One of my favorite things about this system, being an accounting, having an accounting background, is being able to see directly in the system where the this check was coded for the general ledger. Okay, so I'm seeing the earnings deductions, some expense reimbursements that we did, and I'm seeing how that was sent out to the general ledger here. It can also see the employee's portion of the taxes, the employer's portion of deductions or benefits, and their portion of, in this case, Social Security, Medicare, and the California, San Francisco tax. Okay. Didn't use any optional fields or have a direct deposit there. Even better, I can quickly print out this detail, and I'm going to add in some things I'd like to see here with this. And it's going to pull up this report and show me everything that we just looked at in a report format. So I've got the earnings, the deductions, how everything was coded here. And then I also, as I scroll down, I'll see the employer portion of those. And then I've got all of this totaled out. I've got a nice gross to net summary for this, the hours. As you can see, I'm also seeing the journal entry for this particular employee for this payroll. So very nice to be able to see all of that very succinctly. Okay. So that is looking at that particular check. Some organizations, if you are accruing time off plans based on hours actually worked, we would do your accruals in payroll because we need to look at those hours worked. If you do accrual based on per pay period or a lump sum or those type of things, they'll still be in the time off area. Okay. The next area is our selection lists. So this system technically doesn't really have anything that's a direct equivalent or didn't to our pay groups. But a lot of clients found they really liked to see that, right? So they did this enhancement a few releases back where you could also have a selection list to be able to do a process for a group of individuals, run a particular payroll for that. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and transition now over to our payroll area. Actually, I'm going to go over to the setup area. I just want to do a few highlights here. This is something I think that's very powerful. I'm going to open up my regular earnings here. Now, some organizations may have multiple regular earning codes. I need to code my direct labor to one main account number for my general ledger, and then I'm also going to do my admin people to another one. So in Suite, I may have needed to have a earning code with that general ledger structure on it for each different type. In this system, we can have a single earning code and tell the system how we would like to do the coding for that based on what we call distribution codes. So with my regular earning code, I am going to do my direct labor to 6720. My indirect labor is going to go to 6721, and my training is going to go to 6721, but coded to a particular division and department there, as those were part of our general ledger structures. On these, it is going to pull off of the employee's record for those segments. In this case, training, we've got those all coded to that. So we've written those amounts in there. So again, using a single earning code, we could send this particular earning to different general ledger account numbers by utilizing these distribution codes, which are effectively a combination of multiple different pieces of data there. So I think that's pretty powerful. The other thing that I wanted to show you is, let me just go back in here. And if I were setting up a deduction, this was something we talked through with a client. We have a new deduction in New York for the paid family leave. So it's a deduction from the employee's payroll. There's a certain percent that gets deducted each pay period or each week, but there's a maximum out there. So we have the ability to, with the system, set some limitations based on how we want this to work. So we could have a deduction on capping out at a certain dollar amount for this particular deduction, which is the case in New York with that. There's a certain amount we can't go above per week for that employee. Okay, so it's just a quick little look in there at that. So let's go ahead now and transition over to our payroll processing map. Just want to talk through several of these things. Now, your payroll processing map is going to be unique to your organization. It's going to depend on the various modules that you have and any additional enhancements or things you need the system to do, right? So we have some employers that while this system has a very powerful ability to do a match for a 401k, we have some employers that have really intricate calculation rules on how they do their match. You may look back if they've worked a certain number of hours in the last year and have to do a look back and things like that. So there's certain reasons why just out of the box for every employer, the system may not have every setting that they need. So I just wanted to share with you that we have some enhancements out there, and depending on your particular situation, we may make recommendations for those. Same thing with the garnishment manager tool. Some groups don't have a lot of garnishments, a few child support, that's it, and they're happy to continue to calculate it the way they've done. Okay. If you're using the electronic forms component, we would stop our saves into the system. This is going to let everybody know that, hey, does this, we don't want any saves into the system at this time. So nobody's thinking that something is going to be added to this particular payroll. So in HR Actions, they would know that, hey, wait, you can't do any saves. That would give them a heads up that we're doing our payroll processing. It does start with opening our payroll, doing our syncing of data here. As I mentioned, I am back in June, so I'm going to look at that. I'm going to enter my pay period start and end date. So the system is capable of holding those changes until they're effective. I'm going to slide down here to the more options. I have everybody set up as a hourly amount in this particular demonstration database. And I'm going to go out and get all of my employees. It's going to include all of my benefit deductions, but if I didn't for some reason want to bring those in right now, I can wait on that. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead, I've gotten all of my employees, and you can do this process multiple times. So maybe somebody calls you after you've started and they say, oh my gosh, I promised that pay increase for Frank, and I need to get that processed for this particular run. I just entered it, can you please get that right over there? So we could run this multiple times. We could run it for a single individual. In this particular instance, everything is in sync. I have not made any changes in the employee records that need to get updated here. Had I would see the employee, their ID number, and I would see what has been changed. So if we've got a different rate of pay, it will show me what the rate of pay in HR is, what it is in payroll. So this allows us to really take a detailed look at that. And as I mentioned, I can run this as many times as I need to, or run it for a single individual. Okay. Now, I also had a question here in the toolbar that I'm going to address right now. So there is some innate ability in the system to import time directly into the system. What it lacks is validation. So if we have a time file and an employee has something in the timekeeping set up, maybe they moved over to a new department and for some reason we have not set up that department, you've added a new machine or something like that, in the system, if we do just the standard import, it is going to stop when it incurs that issue on the employee. You'll see the employee where it's stopped at. we'll have to stop, go out, make those changes, come back in, start the employee or the time import again, and then if there's another error again, it will stop. So we'll have to go through that because it doesn't look at everything ahead of time, right? So with the time import, and I've also got some additional enhancements turned on in this particular version here, I can go out and put in my pay period and date, and I'm going to go out and get a record here. So it's just navigating to where that file exists, and I'm going to go ahead and import in that data, okay? And it's going to, if I look down at the log down here, it's going to show me that it was imported in fine. Now I'm going to go over to my data validation reports, and I'm going to view this information. And I can see the data. This is, again, just a silly small file that I grabbed here for our demonstration purposes. But it's telling me the employee ID number, any information there on the particular payroll run, the earning code. We can, we've got what we call mapping tables. So if you're calling an earning one thing in timekeeping, we'll map it to the correct earning code in the payroll. So that looks fine, and I would just continue. I can do a summary, the total number of hours that have gone in, but here's what we really want to look at, right? I want to look at the validation report. I want to see these errors. So instead of stopping and starting on these 3 employees with these 2 different areas here in earnings, I need to go and make those changes. So I've not posted anything yet, so I can go make those changes and then come back and do the actual posting to the HRMS, okay? But as I mentioned, in this environment, I have everybody set up with a specific time card. What I have in this system right here is also the ability to do, if we're doing some retroactive pay calculations, we've got an enhancement in here that will look back at all of the earnings that happened. In this case, maybe it was a quarterly bonus or monthly, and I may need to adjust for Fair Labor Standards Act the rate for the overtime for that based on this bonus. So I could import in a bonus from, have a CSV file with the bonus information. No need to key it all anymore. I could also import in one-time deductions. So maybe we've had the Red Cross out, and we are going to do some disaster preparedness kits directly through payroll deduction. So we could import those in as well. I want to take a look at the time card list out here, and I want to do a new one. I just wanted to show you this is where I can go out and make those changes for a particular pay period for this particular employee, where we needed to override something for a one-time only earnings here. I'm going to go ahead and tab there. I know I'm not out. And I'm going to go out and find her deduction code for her medical plan here. And as I tab along here, I'll see what is standardly set up is $46.31 for her deduction. For this particular payroll, I might want to override that to make that $92.62. Okay. So now for this particular run, I am just going to override that. I don't need to remember to go back and make those changes to her record, okay? So I'm going to go through and do my calculate payroll here. So I'm going to do my, when I'm processing, and put in my pay period end date. And I am going to do my check date. And I can run it for everything. I could say, hey, I want you to ignore any negative checks. So maybe we have somebody out on leave. We're not importing time in for them, and I don't want to see that check come up. So I could do that as well and just look at positive amounts here. So I'm going to grab, because I had my employees set up with these frequencies in their record. This is also where I could tell the system to pay certain earnings or take certain deductions based on these flags here. So I could pay a bonus. Maybe I have as part of our processing that if I'm going to do a commission, I mark the little box that says quarterly. Maybe I pay those quarterly. Maybe I pay them once a month, and maybe I want it to be monthly. Again, you would work with your consultant on that. But I can, again, tell the system to do particular earnings or deductions there. So I've grabbed my employees this way, but I could have also used the selection list. Maybe I just want to run a commission check for employees that are part of the sales group, and I have that set up as a class code. Or maybe I just need to do a check on demand, right? So not a separate process when we do a check on demand, no having to remember how to answer those silly questions at the end, or when you're processing, are they going to be included, these wages or not? It's the same type of processing here, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and do my processing, and then we'll see that exception report come up. Again, and our exception report is just giving us a heads up on things that may or may not need our action. And we'll just do that evaluation based on what we find on this exception report. So as it's processing here, it's going to tell me, yes, some exceptions were found, and we'll look at this report, and I'm going to determine whether or not they're actionable items. So we did not select a pay frequency that is going to do our retroactive overtime calculations for us. So that's okay. I passed an end date for a prescription deduction that is no longer active. That's fine. I've got an employee who's reached a maximum on their 401k, so that's not going to happen. And so we're just going to look through our exception report, make our determinations if we need to make any changes, and go ahead and make corrections because it is something actionable. We can take action on that at this time. I've determined that great, good information to know, but I do not have any actionable items. Okay. So if I had the Garnishment Manager tool in my system, I would go ahead and do my Garnishment Manager calculations and then recalculate payroll. If I needed to do some advanced calculations because I had an extremely complex employer match on a 401k, I could do that as well. I can look at the pre-check register for this particular payroll run. I'm going to put in my check date. Take a look at this, and I want to look at this information here. I'm going to sort it by employee name in this case, so I'm just going to print this out. It's going to print up and screen, and this is that very detailed look at what's going on with the employee. I'm seeing how everything is coded here, and but it is a very large report for a group of individuals. I can see all of my wages paid, the total number of hours, etc. Many of our clients are so used to what's one of your favorite reports in Suite or ones you may use the most, check direct deposit register. So we've recreated many of those very popular Suite payroll reports because our clients are just used to seeing the data in that information. So you could run that for unposted checks for this particular pay period as well and have that nice succinct view of that data that you're probably used to seeing. Really up to you how you want to do that. So if I've determined everything is fine for this particular payroll run, I'm going to go ahead and process my time off. And this is if I'm doing my accruals, I'm going to accrue through my certain points so that I'm going to put in my pay period end date for this case. It's going to warn me. It's looking at those plans set up in the time off area, formerly known as attendance. So that I've got 31 employees, 63 plans. One of them is going to need a year-end close, which is fine. Maybe I've got an anniversary-based plan and that we've got one employee that needs to have that vacation plan for his based on his hire date closed out. Okay, so I've done that, and then I'm going to print and post my checks. This is also where I would print direct deposits as well. So I'm going to go ahead and put in my check date here. And you can see I could select if I wanted to do my direct deposits as well. I can add a little note at the bottom. Instead of having to go to a different area of the system to add these to the system and then potentially forgetting to change those, you just add them right in this our relay for life on July 7th. Okay. And I can also pick how I want to sort these: employee name, class codes. That's where we had those class codes, so a lot of groups may utilize that. So I'm going to go ahead and print my checks now, and it will bring up my checks for me here. There we go. And once I'm satisfied with those, I'm going to bring up the actual check itself. I'll go ahead and complete printing those. And in my demonstration environment, that's all I have to do. It's going to ask me if I want to post those in the self-service portal because I have the self-service portal in this particular environment. And this is what I'm going to post. That's the actual check date. Why wouldn't I want to post it? Maybe I'm doing a check on demand for someone that we're going to terminate today. Maybe we have a special bonus that we wanted to award and didn't want to show the employee. We want it to be a surprise. So there's a lot of different reasons why you might not post that into the self-service portal right away. Okay. So I've done that. Now I can come out and unblock my saves here. I'm going to create my ACH file. And you'll notice here I'm going to put in my pay period end date. And I could have, because it's date sensitive, I could have been recreating something as well. Okay, I'm just going to, time purposes, close out of that. So that's a quick walk through the actual process. I want to transition now over to reports, and I'm set on my government reports. So I did want to show you that this is where we're able to do this. So I've now created my last payroll run for that particular quarter. So I want to come over here and do my second quarter 941, and I'm going to go ahead and display this, and it's going to launch Atrix. Now, you don't have to have a quarterly bundle. I've done this before. I'm not going to use my work in process. I didn't finalize that report, so that gave me that option. Just giving me some information here, review it. I can print out my copy. I can print and mail them in to the tax entity, or I can do the e-file, right? So the electronic file is where I have a single portal to be able to report into all of these various tax entities. So if I go through my pages here, I want to mark that I'm a semi-weekly depositor. It brings up my Schedule B, and you'll see you could make edits there. And so I want to now go back, and maybe I was not recording my tax deposits in the system in this particular demonstration environment. So I'm just documenting what I did pay this quarter, but you can do your deposit slips through them. It's all part of a setup configuration. So once I am happy with this report, I'm going to finalize that report, and then I will go ahead and do my e-file. So I can e-file, or I can print out my copy and do it here. Okay. The other things I wanted to just show you briefly in this area is the state taxes, being able to select your various taxes. So I see all of the reports. So I can do my new hire reporting. I can put in my parameters and upload that file there. I could print out my coupons, do my quarterly report. Now, one area that you need to consider is if you don't want to do their quarterly bundle, which will allow you to do the electronic filing of your 941, your state and local taxes electronically, and your SUDA. If you just want to print those out and mail those in, that would be fine, but you may be over a threshold where you are required to report electronically. In that case, if you didn't want to buy the bundle, Atrix does have pricing on a per report basis as well. For most groups, the bundle makes sense. Okay. It's also through them that you can do our W-2s. You can still decide that you want to print and distribute those yourself, or perhaps you would like to have Atrix mail and distribute those to all of your employees, or provide that portal so that your employees can obtain a copy of their W-2 electronically. So they're very economical. You may be familiar with Atrix if you're a Suite user and use the My Workforce Analyzer. They also have information or a discount if you file both of those together, the 1094, 1095 reports and your W-2s. So one thing I really like about doing W-2s in this system is you have the ability to come in here instead of having to go to a separate screen for each employee. One year I forgot to mark a couple people that they're box 13, and I'd have to go find them, and you have to go through 3 screens. In this version, you can do this right on the fly here, and you'll see our totals are summed up here. So I would just go through my various steps. It does some error checking for us here, and once it's satisfied with everything, it's given me, I found some local wages. I'm just going to, for our purposes today in my demonstration environment, I'm just going to continue. Just wanted to show you this. So if you did the full package where they mailed the copies to the employees and they do your state and federal filing, it's $209 per W-2 issued. If you have employees that are going to elect to get those electronically, it goes down to 99 cents per W-2 issued. You can always print those yourself. And then if you need to do the state filing, you could elect to have the state file for you, or it would show you what those amounts are as well. Okay, we've gone a little bit. We're right at the top of the hour. I will keep the lines open for any additional questions that you may have. And I appreciate your time today. If you have additional questions and you would like those to be addressed, you can email me or give me a call. Otherwise, I'll go ahead and end or open up